Hey, welcome back to Nights and Weekends with me, Marcus, your host. Hey, so I know it's been a little bit here, but as you can see from the thumbnail, I'm 100% on board for the tariffs because apparent apparently we have forgotten in this country that you actually do have to work and produce goods to be able to import. And like how Warren Buffett said, he used to be very, very worried about trade deficits. And now, probably since he's 90 plus years old, he's like, I'm on my way out of here anyway. But Marcus, throw in the clip of him talking about trade deficits from a movie called IOU USA. Throw that in.
Economics tends to put people to sleep, and I thought maybe by creating a couple of islands with inhabitants of quite widely different activities that it might get across a point that otherwise they get lost on. The thrust is that if you own a lot of property, an island in this case, you can trade it off for the things that you eat and consume every day. You can do that for a long time, but eventually you run out of property and then you have to work a whole lot harder to provide your own needs, but also to pay back for the debts you've incurred.
So that's the main reason I have a problem with huge sustained trade deficits, is that eventually it is a claim on your wealth and a claim on your land that foreign companies and foreign countries are going to have on your country that they would not allow in their country. So we're going to jump into maybe three things that I want to highlight here that our businesses here, the folks who run the businesses here, sold out the American worker completely. And those have consequences, meaning if we were to actually get into a full-blown World War II style war, we would not have the manpower because a lot of folks here are fat, lazy, and unskilled and do not think that they have to work any kind of difficult job. And then on top of that, we don't have the manufacturing capacity to do what we did in the past. So I'm going to jump right on in. First, we're going to talk about why the GDP shrank in the first quarter. And then we're going to go step by step. So we're going to talk about how the GDP fell. We're going to talk about essentially how the business owners here deindustrialize a lot of our economy, and then also how that could have potential impacts in the future. So here we go. All right, I'm clicking my head off. So as we can see here, this is according to Reuters, because you will have a lot of people who will jump on Trump and say, oh, he's crashing the economy, blah, blah, blah. And they don't know how the damn GDP numbers are even calculated. Trade deficits are subtracted from your GDP, literally subtracted. Okay, it is a reason why they do that. Why the economists and the people at the NBER and the folks who come up with the data subtract it. So as we can see here, this is according to Reuters. The large trade gap chopped essentially 5 points off of GDP. Okay, so if we had just had a normal 2.5 or 2% or even 1%, we would have had a 2.5 or 3% growing economy, thanks to the policies that were set up prior to Trump being in office. Okay, we do not play that game over here where as soon as the person in office that it's their economy. That's ridiculous. But so as we can see there, GDP subtracts. I'm sorry, trade deficits subtract from your GDP. Ed and Marcus, throw it. It's about a 2-minute clip of Warren Buffett also explaining it. Throw that in.
I think it was in 2003, Joe, I wrote article for Fortune actually about the trade deficit. I was worried about it getting too large then because, again, it was getting to be 3% or so of GDP. And it wasn't specific to China at all, but it was just a question of how wise it is to let the trade deficit grow larger and larger, because when you run when you are in effect buying more from other countries than they're buying from you, you are handing them investment funds. I mean, it's the nature. You give them little pieces of paper and they can convert that into buying. They can buy government bonds. They can buy buildings here. And Japanese bought Pebble Beach in the 1980s when they were running a big surplus. I mean, so you are giving up claim checks on our country, essentially, in exchange for having more consumption now than you're producing in this country. And so I do think that there's levels of trade deficit that bother me. I had some system that did not make it country specific. But I think the world has gotten better and better, and there's no question that countries may try and take advantage in this or that, and we've actually been guilty of that sometimes in the past too. I don't think leaders in other countries, whether China or 100 other countries, are not smart enough to realize that it's in the interest to keep promoting trade. The more we trade over time, and we don't want it to be a question of where we import 20% of our GDP and we export nothing. Now, we could all quit working, and we could hand little pieces of paper to the rest of the world, and they could keep sending us food, and they could send us autos, and they can send us all kinds of things. But eventually they have claims on all our wealth. So we do want to have policies where the overall trade deficit does not get out of hand in relation to GDP.
Edited Marcus here. That's from several years ago, just so that we have that in open honesty. That's from like 5 or 6 years ago. All right, back to the video. So as we can see there, he's not for us running these huge trade deficits forever. It's quite literally unsustainable. But we will ask ourselves here, what is driving the U.S. trade deficit? And it's a lot of manufactured goods. This was in 2022, essentially a $500 billion deficit with China, $155 billion deficit with Mexico, $123 with Vietnam, $103 with Japan, $83 billion with Germany. And if you add all those up, that's probably close to about $1 trillion, or I take that back. Probably not $1 trillion, but it's close. It's close. And as you can see here, we had a 1.3 total goods deficit in 2022. So you would kind of ask why. Now, letting China into the World Trade Organization was a bad idea from the U.S. perspective, from the U.S. middle class perspective. Yes, you got cheaper goods, but also you have a ton of rusting factories. You have a ton of people who are unemployed or underemployed, who are not working those jobs. And as we can see here, this is from the Visual Capitalist. From 2001, wow, I was 20 then, to 2018, China accounted for 40% of the growth in imports and 59% of the increase in U.S. manufacturing trade deficit. That's a lot. So you will ask this, well, how did that happen? So the thing that's nice is that we have a wealth of information on the internet. This is from the Economic Policy Institute. This is manufacturing job losses. Trade, not productivity, is the culprit. So as we can see here, this is a graph of U.S. manufacturing employment from January 1970 to December of 2014. We had approximately 18 million people in manufacturing jobs in 1970. That had got down, let's go to the year I was born, 81. No, better yet, this is more illustrative. It was about 17.5 million in 1982. Fast forward 20 years. Sorry, not 20 years. Let's go right up to the point where they let China into the WTO. It was 17.3 million in the year 2000. That's how many manufacturing jobs that we had here. And then we can end up seeing what happened when we got into these bad trade deals with Mexico, China, Vietnam, etc. It went from 17.3 million, okay, all the way down in 2010 to 11.5 million. So you lost 6 million manufacturing jobs in a decade. A decade. Think about that. It essentially went down by like 40% in a decade. And if we look here, this will end up coming up a little bit later. So as we can see here, this is average annual change in output, productivity, and employment growth in U.S. manufacturing from 1989 to 2014. Output grew on average 3.7% per year, okay? Productivity grew 4.1%. Employment was going down slightly, so it went down by 0.3 in hours, 0.3% per year. Then let's look at what happened after we let China into the WTO. In the year 2000 to 2007, output grew by 0.5%. Half total output. Productivity went up by 3.7%. So that's workers working probably harder, and also machines coming in and taking over some of those jobs. So employment fell on average 3.1%. Now this is telling 0% output growth from 2007 to 2014. Productivity on average went up 1.7% on average per year. And employment hours went down by 1.6% on average per year. Your politicians, my politicians, they sold us out, period. Okay. And it has detriment. It isn't good for us in the long run. We're going to look really quick. This is from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. In the 1800s to about the very latter part of the 1800s, the country ran a trade deficit because there essentially weren't any huge factories here and stuff like that. The folks then had to import the stuff to actually build up the capital infrastructure here to be able to produce goods and to produce a good society, like a good functioning capital stock. Then we will go here. This country used to run trade surpluses, as we can see here, from 1870 all the way to 1975, pretty much. We actually ran surpluses on average, about 1%. And then now, oh no. Now we're running 2.5%, 3%, but trade deficits every single year. That means that your ability to produce goods that other parts of the world want and be able to manufacture them has been gutted. Now we're going to look here. This is the U.S. what it is that we export, and as we can see here, we're the second largest exporter in the world, behind China at $2.06 trillion of exports per year in 2024. China has 3.38 trillion in 2023. Now, China does cook its books, okay? Like how the U.S. cooks our books here, but they cook it unbelievably through the roof. I have no doubt about it. But if you look here, one of the largest thing that the U.S. exports that is counted as like a manufactured good is oil. Is that like a finished product, like a TV, a computer screen, a light, a desk, anything like that? No, we aren't really known for that type of stuff here anymore. So as we can see here, these are the largest parts of our exports. Oil. You have machinery, nuclear reactors, boilers, but those are very expensive. Those aren't like a million of those being put out. That's like probably several thousand, if that, because those are very expensive. That's expensive capital equipment. Then we have 214 billions of electrical and electronic equipment, vehicles, other railway and tramway 144 billion, and then aircraft 134 billion, plastics, etc. But if we look here, China has almost 50%, over 50% greater dollars or product that they export. Electrical equipment, almost $1 trillion that they export. Machinery, nuclear reactors, boilers, 510 billion. Okay, these are the things that the U.S. gave up to save a couple of pennies to give to our international, strategic, ideological enemy, at least their government. I don't know about the people, but at least their government. So as we can see here, we've been gutted out. Now, I'm going to go to the shipbuilding part here last, but I wanted to just kind of end up putting into some type of perspective that we couldn't do this anymore. Marcus, throw in the clip of what was going on during World War II. We were able to crank out as a country, and this is absolutely crazy. We as a country were able to crank out 300,000 military aircraft in 5 years, almost 6 years. And March of 1944 saw over 9,000 aircraft come off of assembly lines. Now, for the people in the back who will be like, oh, that's just like a couple of plants. No, you idiots. It's the infrastructure that comes along with it. It is the rubber. It is the hose. It is the iron, the aluminum, the magnesium. It is the cotton that goes into the seats. It is the leather that then covers the seats. It is the nylon for this. It is the steel production for the wings. It is it's more than just you just have a place that knocks together a plane. Okay, we don't have the manufacturing capacity to get anywhere near that. And also, I had looked at a thing about shipbuilding. The U.S. was able to crank out like several thousand ships. And the U.S. at its peak was able to take a ship from nothing to completely built during World War II in 50 days. 50. We could not do that today. As a matter of fact, Ed and Marcus is going to edit some stuff out. Ed and Marcus, do your magic. See, Ed and Marcus did his magic. So as we can see here, now this is from the AI overview, but if you actually click it, it's this here. You can actually go and read this stuff, and it's pretty close to what they summarize here. The U.S. builds around 5 new ships annually, while China builds hundreds because they have the underlying infrastructure that we essentially gave up for cheap Chinese bullshit. Okay. Are like you happy with those lower prices? Yeah. I hope that like you are, because again, it's like as if the folks in this world, especially the ones that live in the fat, happy, lazy U.S. Now, we are not lazy, but we are kind of, we're living well in excess, myself included. It's like as if we forgot what Colonel Jessup said.
You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg?
That's the truth. That's the world in which we live in. Okay. So if we were to have to go to war with this country, let alone other countries that support them, where are we going to, where yet? There we go. Where on earth are we going to get the ships, the metal? Because you'd be out of your mind to think that China is going to actually trade with us during a full-scale war. Where are we going to get the computer chips? Where are we going to get all the hoses, all of the welding components, all of the rubber components for bushings, etc.? Okay. We're going to go right here. And Marcus got to edit something out. Get back to work, boy. So those are my things when it comes to the trade deficits and its effect on our country. Yes, we got lower prices, or we had very low inflation from 2000 all the way up until just recently because of the dumbass lockdown policies and the stimulus that came afterward and all the QE and everything else. Whatever. We end up getting lower prices at the cost of actually being able to produce the goods and services that we need in our everyday life. And lastly, Trump is wrong. Whenever Trump says that they're ripping us off, they are not ripping us off. Okay? They are not ripping us off. We're ripping them off. Okay? Peter Schiff is going to take us out of here. That's it. It's a bad thing to run huge sustained trade deficits essentially indefinitely. Okay? You have to be able to produce to be able to import. And eventually, when we have a currency crisis and the US dollar is no longer the world reserve currency, we're going to get snatched back to reality. Budget deficits are going to matter again. Your standard of living is going to fall drastically because we won't be able to send out little green pieces of paper and actually get goods from the rest of the world. So Peter Schiff, take us out. I'll hopefully see y'all in a week. I have a daughter who's getting married, even though, sometimes I don't think I'm old, but I am old. I was talking with my father. I said, damn, Dad, you're old. But then he also said, you're old. And I'm like, damn, he's right. So see y'all in a week. All right. Bye.
Trump just doesn't understand the game that's being played. But he is correct in his assessment that what's happening is a bad thing. Yes, we are indulging our present, but we're sacrificing our future. But these trade deficits are symptomatic of the underlying problem in the economy, that we don't produce enough, we consume too much, we don't save enough, we don't invest enough, we have this bubble economy. That's our fault. Now, yes, the rest of the world has enabled that by financing this, by financing our trade deficits and recycling them to finance our budget deficits. But to recreate the type of economy that Donald Trump wants to create, in order to do that, all of that inflation is going to move back from Wall Street to Main Street.